President Donald Trump, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Today marks a historic moment, profound significance for Cambodia and Thailand, a day that reaffirms our shared conviction that peace is always possible when nations have the courage and wisdom to pursue it together. On behalf of the Cambodian peoples, I wish to express my deepest gratitude to President Donald J. Trump for his decisive leadership and steadfast commitment to supporting the lasting peace between Cambodia and Thailand, and for his tireless efforts to make it a reality. I also wish to convey my sincere appreciations to Prime Minister Anwar for his unwavering support and facilitation throughout this peace process until successful conclusions. I further extend my appreciations to my ASEAN colleagues, China, and other partners who have been supporting the ceasefire from the beginning. The principles that underpin this joint declaration are those that Cambodia holds dear. That no matter how difficult or complex our dispute may be, they must always be resolved through peaceful means in full conformity with existing treaties and international law. Cambodia reaffirms a strong commitment to fully and faithfully implementing these joint declarations and to continuing to work closely with Thailand and all our partners to ensure that this peace endures and brings tangible benefit to our peoples. We look forward to continued support and contribution of international communities and partners to fruitful realizations of the joint declarations. As we speak, I think our two commanders are discussing on the possibility of start of withdrawal, partial withdrawal of the first phase of our heavy weapons as an indication of our willingness to show that the execution of the joint declarations. At the same time, I strongly hope for the prompt release of our 18 soldiers on humanitarian grounds and as agreed in the joint declarations. Finally, recognizing your unwavering dedications and resolute effort to promote peace, and not only between Cambodia and Thailand, but also among other nations. And reflecting the gratitude of the Cambodian peoples, I have nominated President Donald J. Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. And he, like I say, peace saves life. And this is the wish of our Cambodian people as appreciations for the President. So thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you.
President Trump, Prime Minister Anwar, Prime Minister Hun Manet, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, today marks a new chapter for Thailand and Cambodia. Today we take a concrete step towards peace. I would like to thank Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim for the leadership as ASEAN Chair and your strong efforts in upholding ASEAN unity. And I also wish to express my sincere appreciation to President Donald J. Trump for your personal dedication to peace between our two countries. And in addition, I thank so much for the kind words of condolences that the President has given to our country on the great loss of our beloved Queen Mother. It means a lot to Thai people. We have come a long way since agreeing to the ceasefire here in Malaysia on 28th of July. The discussions since then have led to this important outcome, which is the signing of our joint declaration today. And I have to thank Prime Minister Hun Manet for his cooperation and support that led us to this moment. Thailand stands for peace. This declaration reflects our will to resolve differences peacefully, in full respect of sovereignty and territorial integrity. This declaration, if fully implemented, will provide the building blocks for a lasting peace. But more importantly, it will begin the process of mending our ties. Our border communities have been divided by conflict, and innocent civilians have suffered immense losses. This declaration places a firm responsibility on our two parties to act. I believe we can achieve what seemed beyond reach a few months ago. To this end, I welcome the agreement that following the signing of this joint declaration today, both sides will begin implementing all the agreed points, in particular, promptly removing heavy weapons from the border areas to ensure the safety of our people, to build confidence and trust. And Thailand will also begin the process of releasing the 18 detained Cambodian soldiers. We have a responsibility to act in earnest and in good faith, and that will restore livelihoods and protect the well-being of our communities along our shared border. To achieve real change on the ground, what we agree on here must be implemented. Only then can we truly turn to a new page. Only then can we assure that our people's security and safety. Only then can we achieve real peace. This is what our people expect of us, and this is what they deserve. Peace with dignity. Going forward, I call on our friends to continue supporting this process so that the joint declaration is implemented fully and in good faith, rebuilding stability, trust, and renewed cooperation between Thailand and Cambodia and across our region. I am also pleased that today we announced the joint statement on a framework for a U.S.-Thailand agreement on reciprocal trade, which I hope will facilitate our negotiations on tariffs for conclusion by end of this year. We will also sign the MOU between our governments on cooperation on critical minerals, which will further promote resilient and sustainable supply chains for years to come. Thank you once again. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Okay, you're observing the signing of the peace deal between the two parties, Thailand and Cambodia. All four here, you see before you, making comments, President Trump calling it a momentous day for Southeast Asia, saying he's honored to be involved and saying that this allows them, all countries involved, to forge a future and also for the region, pointing out that, the courage behavior of all the two leaders involved, particularly Hun Manet and Anutin, and the efforts of Anwar Ibrahim, the chair, as well as Malaysia's Prime Minister, to broker and arrange for these two parties to come together should be recognized and commended, pointing out that this is the 8th war that he stopped, and saying, that there's only one left, obviously talking about Ukraine. We heard from the ASEAN chair as well, saying saying that breaking the rules are needed sometimes, and pointing out, jokingly, of course, that, he served prison time and Donald Trump nearly did, and talking about how Donald Trump stayed focused on forging peace, and that is the reason that all parties are here this morning. Hun Manet talking about the principles that the country believes in, his country believes in, and that is no matter how complex, all disputes and conflicts should be resolved peacefully. So it is official. It's been signed. Very quickly, what the Thai Prime Minister said, calling this a new chapter, exchanging the documents, there between the two prime ministers, and saying this reflects Thailand's dedication to peace. But interestingly, speaking about how this must be implemented for the achievement of real peace. So this is where I want to bring you in, Saktis. Anutin, said the right things, I guess, by and large, but it seemed as though that there were some caveats involved as well, talking about the implementation, talking about respect for individual nations' sovereignty. I'm wondering if that is a correct read, or am I being a little bit harsh?
Now, this has been one of the 10 points of contentions in the run-up to all these talks that have been now finalized in these Kuala Lumpur Peace Accords, another name for this joint declaration. CNA understands that, after talking to sources within the Thai delegation, that one touch point is that they want assurances, they want tangible assurances that whatever is being signed here is actually being kept and is actually going to be followed through. And that, of course, is going to be very interesting and very curious going forward to see if whatever is being signed here, whatever these four distinguished gentlemen have agreed on is being kept here. And now I want to point one thing out. Among these four distinguished gentlemen, a word that US President Trump has used a lot in his speech, is that Anutin Charnvirakul is the newest Prime Minister, the newest leader at the table. He has been in office just since September, because during the conflict at the border, there was another Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra, who was actually suspended because of that phone leak with former Prime Minister Hun Manet. Some people point that was also one of the major plot points of that border conflict, so to speak here. So, and that also goes to points to another problem in the eyes of many observers when it comes to Thailand, and it's also its role in diplomacy. Ever since the military coup in 2014, the observers have criticized Thailand to be rather inward-looking in their diplomatic role, basically being gone from the world stage here. And of course, the many changes in government, especially in the past 2 or 3 years alone, didn't help as well. So that is also something that all these stakeholders here are wondering if there's going to be a Thai government, to be precise, still be there actually to follow that through. Because also, let's not forget, Anutin Charnvirakul has announced that he will call for snap elections in the first quarter of next year. So there might be another prime minister that is going to be helming this.
That is a very real concern, Saktis. Waikit, want to get you in now. Hun Manet, sounding seemingly a lot more conciliatory, saying that the country's one principle that the country has is no matter how complex, how difficult the disagreement is, it should be resolved peacefully, calling for the release of 18 POWs as well. I want to get your sense of, what he said and whether or not he is indeed really being more conciliatory.
Well, I must first of all point out that listening to the speeches of these four men, when Prime Minister Hun Manet did speak, he, of course, acknowledged everyone in the room. He had first and foremost singled out Mr. Donald Trump, thanking him, followed by, let me just turn my page to look at my notes that I jotted earlier, followed by Mr. Anwar Ibrahim, and then thanking ASEAN colleagues. There was no direct mention of Mr. Anutin Charnvirakul, but you will surely appreciate that whatever he said was meant for the ears of Thailand. He said that peace is always possible and that there will always be, he will always be working closely with Thailand. Now that stood out for me. What also stood out for me during Mr. Donald Trump's speech was, again, pardon me, turning back to my page on Donald Trump. He had said that he had ended 8 wars, ending one every month, and in a way, his physical presence here sort of is like having his footprint and thumbprint in the region, and it anchors him, making him more invested in the region's safety and security. And I'm quite sure that Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim had caught that, because as he had praised Donald Trump, and also, as you said, jokingly talked about how he was in jail, Mr. Donald Trump nearly went there. At the end, he wrapped up by emphasizing that Mr. Donald Trump is a person of peace. So in a way, the speeches here, if you were to read or listen between the lines, this presence of Mr. Donald Trump here in a way ties him, anchors him down, and making him more committed to security in the region. I also want to point out that his paying of tribute to the late Queen Mother is in a way a reflection of how he understands the region. He had also praised Thai and Cambodian prime ministers as great figures, high quality people, again reflecting the ASEAN way, setting the tone of the peace signing. And in a way, it also speaks to Mr. Anwar Ibrahim's statements that he made earlier at the opening of the ASEAN summit. He said that this peace deal is a reflection of ASEAN's strength, which is not based on uniformity, but the conviction of respect and reason.
So, YK, this brings me to the next conflict in the region that is still unresolved, a civil war going on in Myanmar. I imagine that there are many differences, but is there anything from this signing that can be brought to the situation in Myanmar as far as the war there is concerned, and of course those upcoming elections as well?
Very, very unlikely that this formula can be replicated from Thai-Cambodia border dispute to the Myanmar crisis. Like I said earlier, some of these conflicts and wars that Mr. Donald Trump had claimed he had ended are really between country A, country B. For Myanmar, it is seen as an internal crisis, a domestic crisis, and US position is very clear that even though it wants to do more to resolve the Myanmar crisis, it will work with ASEAN. ASEAN is the anchor state player here when it comes to resolving the crisis, whether it is with the contribution of EU or UN. ASEAN is the main driver to push Myanmar to do more. And that driver, one of the main elements, is the 5-point consensus, which emphasizes on ending hostilities and violence. But as we speak, there's still reports of violence happening in Myanmar, which makes people wonder whether or not the December 28 elections can actually safely take place. We know for a fact that not the whole of Myanmar will be holding elections, just some parts of it. But then again, there are questions of how legitimate those elections are. ASEAN chair has insisted that they cannot stop Myanmar from holding elections, but they have to be free, fair, and inclusive. Then the next few questions would really be, how do we measure those, and how do we ensure that the Myanmar army can roll out those free, fair, and inclusive elections? I was also speaking with the opposing National Unity Government's Foreign Minister Zin Ma Ao, and she said that every time she speaks with ASEAN, every time there's an engagement, she'll make sure that NUG's position is clear and brought across to the ASEAN counterparts, that they should not legitimize the junta and that they should not recognize any of the results which they call sham elections.
Okay, YK, thank you for that. Sakthith, final question for you. We know that this, if you like, peace agreement, the signing, was preceded by at least a week of talks, frantic talks between the two sides, and you were alluding to this a little bit earlier, but I'm wondering how well received will this agreement be in Thailand, notwithstanding the fact that you already mentioned the fact that there might be a new Thai government in place, but I'm wondering, what the actual powers in Thailand and how would they be reacting to this agreement?
That is an excellent question here, because when we are looking at Thailand, we are not only talking about the Thai government, but also other stakeholders and power stakeholders here in Thailand, especially the Thai military that is in charge of border affairs here. And there has been criticisms, or at the very least, some questioning observations, who is actually running the show here, especially during the conflict, during those clashes earlier this year in July, when we had another government, when we had the government of Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul. Now, of course, what you need to know is that the Thai military is practically an independent stakeholder. It is not under civilian control. But as the tensions were ratcheting up towards that boiling point, so to speak, the civilian government were very comfortable in letting the military actually deal with the operations on the border itself. And of course, when the clashes happened, that's when the military were doing what the military is supposed to do, and which is, in their words, defend their sovereign territory and defend the sovereignty of Thailand here. And there has been not only a change in government, there's also a change in senior military officers, as we always have. These gentlemen have hit their retirement age, and then they, of course, have to go. New ones coming in, they still have to get settled. But still, that goes back to the question about continuity that we have, that I've earlier brought up here. Of course, we are seeing quite I don't want to say a dual track, but there is definitely the appearance of that the civilians and the diplomats are doing one thing, the military are doing another thing, even though the military have been involved in talks with their Cambodian counterparts that were setting the basis of this peace accords that we are seeing here as well. And overall, of course, then there's the question about whether or not these accords will be met and will be followed through, and especially considering that, as we have earlier said, Thailand wants to keep this conflict as a bilateral matter and do not want other countries to be involved, even though the reality on the ground is that there are already, for example, the ASEAN defense attaches already looking at it. So, it's one thing that they are declaring something, but it's also, of course, another thing that the reality and the pragmatism of the Thai officials that they are basically seeing on the ground here, that they are, but at the end of the day is that it is in Thailand's interest, both the military and Thailand, to have what Anutin Charnvirakul, the Prime Minister, calls the building blocks for lasting peace.
All right, the moving parts, though, seem like many success. And Waikit, I thank you both very much. CNA's Dong Waikit in Kuala Lumpur, and Success Soya Sombat is talking to us from Bangkok in Thailand.